Hey guys, it's Betty from BakerBettie.com and welcome back to another video. Today we are making a New York style cheesecake, and if you've never had a New York style cheesecake, it's a little bit different than other cheesecakes in that it is a little bit more dense and it's really silky smooth and creamy. It's my favorite style of cheesecake, and this is actually one of the highest reviewed recipes on my site. So let's go ahead and dive in. Now we're gonna start by making the crust, and we're gonna make a traditional graham cracker style crust. So I have in my bowl here some graham cracker crumbs that I made just by pulsing some graham crackers in my food processor, but you can also buy pre-made graham cracker crumbs. And I have some melted butter here that has been cooled slightly. And then I also have some granulated sugar. And that's it. That's all of the ingredients you need for your crust. It's really, really easy to make. And now we're just going to stir this together until all of those crumbs are moistened with that butter. And then we're going to transfer it into our springform pan. Now you really do need to use a springform pan for this recipe, and I have a 9-inch springform pan here. So now I'm just transferring all of my crust right into the pan. We're going to lightly press it down into the bottom and just about a 1/2 inch up the sides. So I'm just using my spatula here to press it in. You don't want to press it in too firmly, otherwise it's really difficult to cut through the crust, but just lightly press it down until it forms into the bottom of the pan and just up the side very slightly. So that's what it looks like when it's formed into the pan, and now we're just going to bake this in a 375-degree oven for about 8 minutes, and that's just going to crisp it up slightly before we add our filling. All right, so now we are going to move on to our cheesecake filling. And the number one thing you really need to keep in mind when making a cheesecake is that your ingredients must be at room temperature. If they're not at room temperature, you're not going to get that really silky smooth texture. So I pulled all of my cold ingredients out of the fridge about an hour and a half ago, and now we can get started with the filling. So I have in my bowl here all of my cream cheese, and I'm going to add some granulated sugar and a little bit of flour. Now, a lot of cheesecake recipes don't have flour in them, but a New York cheesecake does, and that just makes it a little bit unique, and that's what gives it the texture. So now we are going to mix this together for about 6 minutes, and you really need that long mixing time to get this really silky smooth. Okay, now that my cream cheese is really silky smooth, we're going to add the eggs one at a time and mix those in. And once the first egg is incorporated, you can go ahead and add the next one. So our eggs are incorporated, and now we can add our last few ingredients, which is what is really going to give our cheesecake the best flavor. So I have some sour cream here, and that's going to add a little bit of tanginess into our cheesecake. I also have vanilla extract, and I have a little bit of lemon zest. And this ingredient is actually optional, but I highly recommend adding it. It's going to add even a little more tanginess, and it doesn't taste like a lemon cheesecake, but it really makes it extra special. So now go ahead and mix all of that together. And once all of that is mixed together, I'm going to give the bowl just a little scrape down to make sure everything is incorporated. And now we can add it into our baked crust. Okay, so now all we have to do is pour this batter into our crust, and you don't even have to wait for this crust to cool because it's going to go right back into the oven. And this batter is going to fill up your 9-inch springform pan pretty full, pretty up to the top, and that is what you want it to do. Okay, so as you can see, that is almost right up to the top, and that is what you want. So the way this cheesecake is baked is really important. You need to preheat your oven to 475 degrees, and then we're going to bake it for 8 minutes. Then we're going to leave the oven door shut and drop the temperature down to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Let that bake for another hour, and then we're going to shut the oven off, continue leaving the door shut, and leave the cheesecake in for another hour. Now that first baking time is going to set the top of the cheesecake, and then that lower baking temperature is going to make sure that it bakes slowly all the way through and make sure it keeps that really silky texture. Now this cheesecake is unique in that we don't even need to use a water bath for it, but it's still going to have that perfectly smooth top with no cracks in it. So I'm gonna go ahead and bake it. Now, after your cheesecake comes out of the oven, you do need to let it cool completely at room temperature and then put it in the refrigerator for at least 6 hours and preferably overnight. And that long chilling process is going to make it the perfect texture when you go in and cut it. Now, I did pre-make a cheesecake just so I could go ahead and show you how it turns out today. And this is what it's going to look like. It has that perfectly smooth top. There are no cracks in it, and we didn't even have to use a water bath. So now to release it from your springform pan, go ahead and run a butter knife all around the edges just to make sure that it's not going to stick to the sides when you release it. Okay, and now your springform pan is going to have a little clasp, and you can release that and it should come out perfectly. Look at how beautiful that looks. I am so thrilled with how that turned out. So let's go ahead and cut a piece out of it. Look at how silky smooth and beautiful that looks. I'm so excited to taste this. I haven't made this recipe in quite a while. Okay, so I have some strawberries here that we just macerated with a little bit of sugar so their juices start to release. I'm gonna add a few of those on top. But honestly, you don't even need that either. It's beautiful all on its own. I have to taste it. Let's give it a taste. It is so creamy. It's different than other styles of cheesecake. You have to make it. It's really hard to explain how dense and creamy it is. It's so rich. It's a little bit tangy from that sour cream and the lemon zest that we put in there. It's perfect. It's so good. Now, I really hope you enjoyed this recipe tutorial, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. You can find the full written recipe linked in the description box, and if you have any questions, please leave those down in the comment section. Please follow me at Baker Bettie on Instagram and on Facebook, and I'll see you guys next time with another recipe tutorial.